My name is Evelyn Harper, and turning 72 last fall taught me that life in suburban Texas doesn't always follow the straight, sun-bleached highways we all pretend it does. It's more like those sudden summer storms that barrel in off the Gulf. Clear skies one minute, then thunder cracking overhead and rain hammering the tin roof the next. I live in Willow Creek, a tidy little neighborhood carved out of old ranch land just north of Dallas, where every house is a low-slung brick ranch style with wide front porches, double garages, and American flags snapping in the breeze. The streets are lined with live oaks and crepe myrtles that bloom hot pink every July, and folks still wave from their pickup trucks when they pass. It's the kind of place where neighbors drop off foil-covered dishes after a funeral and expect you to return the favor someday. Our house, Jack's and mine, was the one at the end of Maple Lane, number 417, with pale yellow siding, green shutters, and a backyard that stretched far enough for the big vegetable garden we planted every spring. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a sunroom where the morning light poured in like spilled gold. Jack built that sunroom himself back in '89, hammering every nail while I handed him lemonade and pretended I knew what a stud finder was. He was a Dallas PD detective for 35 years before he retired, the kind of man who could walk into a room, look at someone's shoes, and tell you whether they were lying about their alibi. Tough on the job, gentle at home. He fixed leaky faucets with duct tape and prayer, grilled ribeyes on Sunday afternoons, and loved nothing more than sitting on the porch swing watching fireflies blink across the lawn. Jack left us 6 months ago. Pancreatic cancer, the quiet killer that doesn't announce itself until it's too late. It was a Tuesday in March, early spring, when the bluebonnets were just starting to carpet the medians along Highway 75. He'd been fading for weeks, skin yellowing, voice thinning to a rasp. That last morning, he gripped my hand so hard his knuckles went white and whispered, "Evie, keep your eyes open. Not everyone's who they seem." I chalked it up to the morphine drip and the way pain scrambles a man's thoughts. But those words stuck like burrs on a sock. I still hear them when the house gets too quiet. Sarah and Tom were there at the end. Sarah, our only child, 45 now, with that sharp, chin-length bob she's worn since she turned 30, and eyes that always seem to be adding up columns in her head. She works in real estate, showing McMansions to young couples with 2 incomes and big dreams. Tom, her husband of 18 years, sells enterprise software. He's got the salesman handshake. Firm, warm, practiced, and that perpetual 5 o'clock shadow that makes him look like he's always one meeting away from closing the deal of a lifetime. They flew in from Austin the week before Jack passed, took over the guest room, and handled the practical stuff. Hospice paperwork, calls to the funeral home, arrangements for the church service at First Baptist Willow Creek. "Mom, you don't have to worry about a thing," Sarah told me as she smoothed the blanket over Jack's legs. Her voice was soft, practiced, the same tone she uses when she's closing on a house. "We'll take care of everything." Tom nodded from the corner, scrolling emails on his phone. I believed them then. Grief makes you grateful for any help, even if it comes wrapped in control. The funeral was 3 days later, a gray, drizzly afternoon, the kind where the air smells like wet concrete and fresh-cut grass. The church was packed, old colleagues from the force in dress blues, neighbors in their Sunday best, ladies from my quilting circle pressing clinics into my hands. Everyone said the same things. "He was a good man, Evelyn. You're so strong. Let us know if you need anything." They brought casseroles, tuna noodle, green bean with fried onions, King Ranch chicken, stacked them in my fridge until there was no room left. Southern hospitality at its finest. Feed the widow, pray for her soul, then go home and talk about how she's holding up. Inside, though, I was coming apart at the seams. Jack and I had 48 years together. We met at a sock hop in Fort Worth in 1974. Him in his Letterman jacket, me in a red polka dot dress my mama made. He asked me to dance to Sweet Home Alabama, and that was it. We married a year later, bought this house with a VA loan, raised Sarah, survived layoffs and miscarriages, and every curve life threw. He chased bad guys by day. At night, he chased me around the kitchen laughing until I gave in and let him kiss me. Losing him felt like someone had ripped the foundation out from under the whole damn place. In the weeks that followed, Sarah and Tom started coming around more. At first, it felt like a blessing. Sarah brought groceries, fresh produce, low-sodium soup, the decaf I like. Tom mowed the lawn, edged the flower beds, even pressure-washed the driveway. "Mom, you look tired," Sarah would say, pressing a warm mug into my hands. "Drink this. It'll help." I'd sip, grateful, then feel a strange heaviness settle behind my eyes by noon. Little slips started piling up. Keys left in the fridge, forgetting where I parked at the Super Walmart on 380, blanking on Mrs. Laundry's name even though we've swapped recipes since the Reagan administration. "Mom, are you okay?" Sarah asked one Saturday when I stood frozen at the ATM, unable to remember my PIN. Maybe it's time to talk to someone about memory things. Her tone was gentle, concerned, the way a daughter should sound. Tom leaned against the car, arms crossed, nodding like he'd read the same script. "Grief fogs the brain," I told myself. Everyone says so. But the fog kept thickening. One morning, I woke convinced it was Thursday. The calendar said Sunday. Sarah was already in the kitchen frying bacon. "See, Mom, this is what we mean. Dad wouldn't want you struggling alone like this." Tom sat at the table, scrolling Zillow on his phone. They brought up Dr. Harlan, a neurologist Sarah knew through work. Appointment booked for next Friday. In the meantime, they talked options, assisted living communities. "Not a nursing home, Mom," said Tom with his easy grin. "Think resort for seniors. Pools, bingo, shuttle to the mall. You'd love it." I didn't love it. This house was my anchor. Jack's uniform photos on the mantle, the quilt I pieced for Sarah's college dorm, the porch swing where we'd sip sweet tea and watch fireflies dance across the lawn. Jack's pension and my years subbing at the elementary school left us with no mortgage and savings tucked away, life insurance payouts sitting in CDs. But Sarah and Tom kept steering conversations to money. "The market's hot right now," Sarah said over pot roast one Sunday. "Selling could set you up comfortably and help us too. We've got some debts. Student loans from her master's, credit cards from unexpected stuff, Tom's business trips to Vegas he called conferences. I wrote them checks for a few thousand here and there, thinking family helps family. Then the coffee started feeling wrong. Sarah insisted on brewing it every visit. "My special blend," she'd say with a smile. After a cup, the room would tilt. Words would slide away. Hours would vanish. One night, I dreamed Jack standing at the foot of the bed. "Keep your eyes open, Evie." I woke drenched in sweat and decided to test it. Next visit, I claimed a sour stomach and skipped the mug. By evening, the fog lifted like mist burning off the prairie. Suspicion bloomed. That night, alone, I searched the kitchen. Behind the flour tin, a small brown vial, unlabeled, half full of white capsules. Heart hammering, I drove to Jenkins Pharmacy on Main. Old man Jenkins peered through his bifocals. "Lorazepam, Evelyn, low-dose sedative, can make folks foggy, forgetful, especially if they're not used to it." I mumbled something about an old prescription and fled. Back home, shaking, I remembered the nanny cams Jack installed when Sarah was 16 and borrowing the car without asking. "Better safe than sorry," he'd grinned, hiding them in clocks, smoke alarms, a fake ficus. The app still lived on Jack's old laptop in the attic, password our wedding date. I plugged it in, fingers trembling, and scrolled months of footage. There it was, Sarah in my kitchen 2 weeks ago, alone, crushing a pill with a spoon, stirring the powder into my favorite Texas Star mug. "This should keep her foggy enough," she muttered. Tom stepped in. "How much longer? Doc needs consistent symptoms for the diagnosis." Sarah shrugged. "Few more weeks. Power of attorney, sell the house, clear the loans. Mom won't even remember signing." The screen blurred with my tears. Betrayal hit like a freight train. They weren't helping. They were erasing me, one cup at a time. But Evelyn Harper didn't raise a daughter just to let her steal the family home. Jack taught me better. I wiped my face, backed up the footage, and felt something hard and cold settle in my chest. Anger. Tomorrow, I'd start fighting back. Chapter 2. Whispers of Doubt. The morning after I watched those damning clips on Jack's old laptop, the house felt different. The familiar creak of the hardwood floors, the faint smell of coffee grounds in the sink, the way sunlight slanted through the kitchen blinds, it all looked the same, but none of it felt safe anymore. My own daughter had turned my home into a stage, and I was the unwitting star of a slow-moving tragedy. I sat at the breakfast table with a bowl of oatmeal I couldn't eat, staring at the spot where Sarah had stood the day before, spoon in hand, grinding that little white pill like it was nothing more than sugar for my tea. I couldn't confront her. Not yet. If I tipped my hand too soon, they'd deny everything, destroy the evidence, maybe even accelerate whatever plan they had cooking. No, I had to play along. Act the part of the confused, fading widow they needed me to be. It went against every instinct I had. Jack always said the hardest part of undercover work wasn't the danger. It was pretending to trust people you knew were rotten. Now I understood. So I started small. When Sarah called that afternoon, "Hey Mom, just checking in," I let my voice waver just enough. I'm okay, honey. Just a little tired today. Forgot where I put my reading glasses again." She made the sympathetic cluck I'd heard 1,000 times. "See, that's exactly what we're worried about. Tom and I are coming over tomorrow. We'll bring dinner. You rest, okay?" I murmured agreement and hung up, my palm slick against the phone. The next 24 hours became a careful performance. I moved slower than usual, left cabinets open like I'd forgotten to close them, asked the same question twice when Sarah texted about picking up milk. Inside, though, my mind was racing faster than a stock car on the Texas Motor Speedway. I needed more proof, something concrete that couldn't be explained away as grief or old age, and I needed help. I remembered Amelia Ruiz from a church bulletin insert last year. She ran a small elder law practice out of a modest office in uptown Dallas, specializing in trusts, guardianships, and, quietly, cases of financial exploitation. Her website was straightforward. No flashy graphics, just a headshot of a woman in her late 40s with dark hair pulled back and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much already. The reviews were glowing. She fought for my grandmother when no one else would. Compassionate and fierce. I liked that combination. I didn't call from home. Instead, I drove to the Willow Creek Public Library, same brick building where I used to read stories to preschoolers on Thursday mornings, and used one of the public computers in the back corner. No one pays attention to an older woman typing slowly. I searched her name, confirmed the number, then stepped outside to the parking lot and dialed from my cell with the ringer off. "Ruiz Law Offices, this is Amelia." I kept mine low. "Mrs. Harper? Evelyn Harper from Willow Creek. I think my daughter and son-in-law are drugging me to make me seem confused. They want the house. I have video." There was a beat of silence. Not shock, just assessment. "Mrs. Harper, that's a very serious allegation. Can you come in tomorrow morning, 9:30? Bring whatever evidence you have. And Evelyn, don't tell them you're seeing me. Not yet." I agreed, heart thudding so loud I was sure she could hear it through the line. The rest of that day I spent gathering. I copied the nanny cam footage onto 2 USB drives, one for me, one for Amelia. I photographed the vial from every angle, including the spot behind the flour tin where I'd found it. I printed recent bank statements showing small, unexplained transfers, $2,000 here, $1,500 there, to accounts I didn't recognize. Tom's name appeared on one of them. I also jotted down dates and times in a spiral notebook. Every visit, every cup of special blend coffee, every time Sarah mentioned Dr. Harlan or options for your future. When Sarah and Tom arrived that evening, arms full of Whataburger bags, number twos with extra pickles for me, always. I kept the act going. I shuffled to the door, smiled weakly. Y'all are too good to me. Tom set the food on the table while Sarah brewed coffee without asking. I watched her from the doorway. Same mug, same quick stir, same satisfied little nod when the powder dissolved. We ate in the dining room under the chandelier Jack installed for our 30th anniversary. Sarah talked about a new listing in Frisco, 5 bedrooms, pool, over $750 easy, and how the market's perfect right now, Mom. Tom nodded along, mentioning their tight spot with bills. We're not asking for a handout, just maybe a little help until things turn around. I nodded vaguely, picking at my fries. When Sarah handed me the coffee, "Here, this'll settle your stomach," I took a tiny sip, then accidentally knocked the mug over with my elbow. Oh no, clumsy old me. Hot liquid spread across the tablecloth. Sarah jumped up for paper towels. Tom grabbed the napkins. In the chaos, I dumped the rest down the sink when they weren't looking. After they left, hugs, promises to call Dr. Harlan soon, I sat in the dark living room and rewound the day's footage on the laptop. There they were again, in the living room while I pretended to nap. On the couch, Sarah whispered, "She's slipping faster than I thought. Perfect timing." Tom, appraisal came back at $760. We sell quick, pay off the $150 in loans, maybe buy something smaller for ourselves. She'll be happy at Shady Oaks. They've got that garden courtyard. She likes flowers. Shady Oaks. I'd driven past it once. A beige 2-story building off Loop 820 with a sign promising independent and assisted living. Nothing resort-like about it there. More like a place you warehouse people until the checks stop coming. Rage simmered low in my gut, but I swallowed it. Rage makes you sloppy. Jack taught me that. The next morning, I dressed in my navy plants and white blouse, the outfit I wore to parent-teacher conferences back when Sarah still cared what I thought, and drove to Dallas. Amelia's office was on the 8th floor of a glass building near the Arts District. No doorman, no marble lobby, just quiet efficiency. She met me at the door herself, medium height, dark blazer, no-nonsense handshake. We sat in a small conference room with a long table and a view of the downtown skyline. I laid it all out, the vial, the USB, the notebook, the bank printouts. She plugged in the drive and watched in silence. When the clip of Sarah crushing the pill played, her jaw tightened. This is elder financial abuse, psychological manipulation, and possibly assault with a controlled substance, she said quietly. Texas takes this seriously, felony levels if we prove intent, but we have to be surgical. Confronting them at home risks them destroying evidence or spinning a narrative that you're paranoid. She outlined the plan. First, secure your assets. She'd draft an irrevocable trust naming First Baptist Willow Creek and the local Humane Society as beneficiaries, Jack's 2 favorite causes. The house deed would transfer immediately. Once it was done, Tom and Sarah couldn't touch it even with power of attorney. Second, gather more. Freeze questionable accounts quietly. Document every interaction. Third, the reveal. Invite them to this very office under the pretense of updating the will for your peace of mind. Play the footage on the big screen, have a notary and a sheriff's deputy on standby if needed. It's dramatic, she admitted, but sometimes drama is what forces truth. I signed the initial paperwork with a hand that only shook a little. As I left, Amelia touched my arm. "You're not alone in this, Evelyn. I've seen it too many times. Good people betrayed by the ones they raised. But you're fighting back. That's what matters." Driving home on 75, the radio playing low, I passed the bluebonnet fields again. They were thicker now, a purple sea under the wide Texas sky. For the first time in weeks, I felt something besides grief and fear. I felt resolve. Sarah texted as I pulled into the driveway. "Mom, appointment with Dr. Harlan is Friday. Tom and I will drive you. Love you." I stared at the screen. thumb hovering over the reply. I typed back, "Okay, honey, see you soon." Then I deleted the message thread, just in case.
Chapter 3. Gathering Storms. The week leading up to my appointment with Dr. Harlan felt like walking a tightrope stretched across a canyon. Every step had to look natural, every word measured, every glance innocent. One wrong move and Sarah and Tom would sense the shift. They were too attuned to weakness, too quick to exploit it. I kept reminding myself of Jack's old police adage, "The best cover is the one that feels real because part of it is." So I let the real exhaustion show, the real fear, the real grief. It wasn't hard. It was right there under the surface, raw and ready. Mornings started the same way they always had. Coffee, my own pot now, no special blend. The Dallas Morning News spread on the kitchen table, birds chattering in the live oak out front. But now I read the paper like it was a manual for survival. Articles about elder abuse cases in Collin County, warnings from the Texas Attorney General's office about financial exploitation, stories of families torn apart by greed. I clipped them quietly, tucked them into the spiral notebook that was becoming my secret weapon. I also started small acts of rebellion. I changed the Wi-Fi password, told Sarah the router glitched and the cable guy reset it. I moved the pill vial to the gun safe in the garage, right next to Jack's service revolver and the extra ammo he'd kept just in case. I even bought a cheap voice-activated recorder from the Radio Shack that still lingered in the strip mall on 380 and clipped it inside my purse whenever they came over. Paranoia? Maybe. But Jack always said paranoia is just good situational awareness until proven otherwise. Mrs. Landry from next door noticed the change before anyone else. She was 83, sharp as a tack, with a cloud of white hair and a garden that won Yard of the Year 3 times running. We'd been porch-sitting neighbors for 25 years, shared tomatoes, recipes, and the occasional glass of sweet tea spiked with bourbon when the men weren't looking. One afternoon, she caught me pulling weeds in the front bed, moving slower than usual, on purpose. "Evelyn Harper, you look like you've been carrying the whole state of Texas on your shoulders," she said, leaning on her cane. "What's eating at you, hun?" I hesitated. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford lightly, but something in her eyes, steady, kind, no agenda, cracked me open just a little. "It's Sarah and Tom. They're not who I thought," I whispered. She didn't gasp or clutch her pearls. She just nodded like she'd heard it before. "Come sit a spell." We ended up on her screened porch with glasses of iced tea. I told her the broad strokes, not the videos yet, not the full betrayal, but enough, the coffee, the memory slips that weren't mine, the push towards assisted living. She listened without interrupting, then set her glass down with a soft clink. "My sister's boy did something similar back in '09, slipped things in her inshore, told the doctor she was sundowning, one at the farm in East Texas. Took us 6 months and a good lawyer to stop it. She's gone now, bless her, but that boy, he's still paying restitution, and he don't come around no more." Her words settled over me like a blanket on a chilly night. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone. "Be careful, Evie," Mrs. Landry added. "Folks like that, they'll turn mean when cornered. You got that lawyered yet?" "Working on it," I said. "Good, and keep those cameras running. Jack always was the smartest man on the block." That conversation gave me the nudge I needed. The next day, I met Amelia again, this time at a coffee shop near her office so no one would see my car in her building's garage. She brought printouts, draft trust documents, a petition for a temporary restraining order if things escalated, and a list of questions for Dr. Harlan's office. "Call them," she said. "Ask if they've ever seen you before. Ask who referred you. Keep it casual." I did it from the parking lot of the H-E-B on the way home. The receptionist was polite but confused. "Mrs. Harper," she said, "we don't have a chart for you. No referral in the system. Are you sure it was Dr. Harlan?" My stomach dropped. "Sarah, my daughter, said she set it up." A pause. "We can schedule you if you'd like, but there's no existing appointment." I thanked her and hung up, hands shaking on the wheel. No chart, no appointment, just another layer of smoke. That night, Sarah called, voice bright. "Mom, Dr. Harlan's office confirmed Friday at 10. Tom and I will pick you up at 9:30. Wear something comfortable. They might do some tests." "Tests?" I echoed, letting my voice tremble just right. "Yeah, cognitive stuff. Nothing scary. We just want to make sure you're okay." I murmured thanks and hung up, then played back the voice recorder from my purse. There it was, Sarah on speaker with Tom in the background. She bought it, told her the appointment set. If she starts asking questions, we pivot to "you're confused again." I saved the file, labeled it Exhibit C, and added it to the USB. Amelia and I spent the next 2 afternoons finalizing the trap. The trust was executed Wednesday morning in her office, house deed transferred, bank accounts flagged for unusual activity, beneficiary designations updated. First Baptist Willow Creek would get half of the proceeds from any future sale, the Humane Society the other half, earmarked for a Jack Harper K-9 Memorial Fund. It felt like closing a chapter, like saying goodbye to the life Sarah and Tom wanted to steal. Thursday night, I couldn't sleep. I wandered the house in my robe, touching things, the mantle photo of Jack in dress blues, Sarah's kindergarten handprints in clay, the quilts folded on the guest room bed. Memories crashed in waves, good ones mostly, but the bad ones too. Sarah's teenage rebellion, the way Tom's charm had slowly edged out family dinners, the way money talk started creeping in after Jack's diagnosis. I stood in the sunroom where Jack died, looking out at the garden we'd planted together. The tomatoes were ripe now, heavy on the vines. I picked one, bit into it like an apple. Juice ran down my chin. For a second, I tasted summer, tasted freedom. Friday dawned clear and hot, the kind of Texas morning where the air shimmers before 9 a.m. I dressed carefully, khaki pants, a soft blue blouse Jack always said brought out my eyes, sensible flats. I packed my purse with the second USB, the notebook, the recorder. I left the house unlocked, Sarah had a key anyway, and waited on the porch swing. They pulled up at 9:28 in Tom's black Tahoe, windows tinted, radio low. Sarah hopped out first, all concern. "Ready, Mom?" I stood slowly, smiled the tired smile I'd practiced. "Ready as I'll ever be." Tom helped me into the back seat like I was fragile china. Sarah chattered the whole drive about the weather, a new listing, how this doctor is the best. I nodded, stared out the window at the passing strip malls and billboards. My heart hammered, but my hand stayed steady. We didn't go to Dr. Harlan's office. Tom took the exit for downtown Dallas instead. "Where are we going?" I asked, voice small. Sarah turned in her seat. "Change of plans, Mom. The doctor had an emergency. We're meeting Amelia Ruiz first. She's going to help us with the paperwork while we wait for the reschedule." My blood went cold, then hot. They knew her name. "How do you know Amelia?" I asked. Sarah smiled that patient, pitying smile. "You mentioned her last week, remember? When you were confused. We looked her up. Thought it was smart to have a family meeting." I stared at her. The lie was so smooth it almost sounded true. Tom glanced in the rear view. "Don't worry, Evelyn. We're all on the same team." I clutched my purse tighter. The storm was here, and I was walking right into the eye. But I had the evidence. I had the trust. I had Amelia waiting in her conference room with the big screen queued up and a deputy sheriff on speed dial. They thought they were hurting me. They had no idea I was the one leading them to slaughter. Chapter 4. The Reckoning. The conference room on the 8th floor of Amelia's building smelled like fresh coffee and printer ink, the kind of sterile corporate scent that makes everything feel official and final. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked downtown Dallas, the green glass of the Bank of America Tower catching the mid-morning sun, the Reunion Tower sphere glinting like a giant disco ball in the distance. Inside, though, the air was thick with anticipation. Amelia had set it up perfectly, a long mahogany table, 8 leather chairs, a 50-inch monitor mounted on the wall, and a small side table with water pitchers and notepads. A notary sat quietly in the corner, pen ready. A uniformed deputy sheriff waited just outside the door, Amelia's precaution in case things turned ugly. I arrived first, driven by Mrs. Laundrie, who insisted on coming along, just in case. She squeezed my hand in the elevator. "You got this, Evie. Jack's watching." I nodded, throat too tight to speak. Sarah and Tom walked in at 10:02, right on time. Sarah wore her power suit, charcoal gray, pearl earrings, the one she saved for big closings. Tom had on khakis and a blue button-down, sleeves rolled like he was ready to get to work. They both smiled when they saw me seated at the head of the table. "Mom, there you are," Sarah said, voice bright and relieved. "We were worried when you weren't at home, thought maybe you got confused and wandered off." She bent to kiss my cheek. I let her, but didn't return the gesture. Tom shook Amelia's hand like they were old friends. "Miss Ruiz, thanks for squeezing us in. We really appreciate you helping with the paperwork today." Amelia returned a polite nod, no warmth. "Please, have a seat. We have a few things to go over before we get to any documents." They sat across from me, Sarah on my left, Tom on my right, like bookends boxing me in. Sarah reached for my hand. "Mom, we're so glad you're open to this. Updating the will, setting up a trust, it's smart, especially with everything going on." I pulled my hand back gently. "Everything going on?" "You know, the memory lapses, the doctor's appointment we rescheduled. We just want to make sure you're protected." Amelia cleared her throat. "Before we discuss any changes to Mrs. Harper's estate, I think it's important we review some evidence that's come to light." Sarah's smile faltered for half a second. "Evidence?" Amelia clicked a remote. The monitor flickered to life. The first clip played without preamble. Sarah in my kitchen 2 weeks earlier, alone. The camera angle was high and clear, smoke detector lens. She opened the cabinet, pulled out the vial, tapped 2 white capsules into her palm, crushed them with the back of a spoon, and stirred the powder into my Texas Star mug. "This should keep her foggy enough," she said to the empty room. "Few more weeks, and we're golden." Sarah froze. Tom's face drained of color. "That's not," Sarah started. Amelia didn't let her finish. Next clip, the living room conversation while I napped. Sarah pacing, Tom on the couch. "Appraisals $760, Tom said. "Sell quick, clear the loans, $150 easy. She'll be fine at Shady Oaks. They've got activities. She likes flowers." Sarah's voice cracked. "That was private. You can't—" "Private conversations in your mother's home, captured on security cameras she owns. Perfectly legal in Texas, one-party consent state." Tom leaned forward, hands flat on the table. "This is ridiculous. Evelyn's confused. She's been forgetting things for months. We're trying to help her." Amelia clicked again. Audio only this time. The voice recorder from my purse. Sarah on speaker. "She bought it. Told her the appointment's set. If she starts asking questions, we pivot to 'you're confused again.'" The room went dead silent except for the low hum of the air conditioning. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, real ones or practiced ones, I couldn't tell anymore. "Mom, how could you do this? Spy on us? We were worried about you." I met her gaze. For the first time in months, I didn't flinch. "Worried enough to drug me, to fake a doctor's referral, to plan how fast you could sell my house and pay off your debts?" Tom tried to stand. "This is entrapment. You set us up." Amelia slid a folder across the table. Bank statements, credit inquiries in my name, the $2,000 and $1,500 transfers to Tom's account. "These are not setups, Mr. Reynolds. These are documented, unauthorized transactions. Identity theft, financial exploitation of an elder, felonies under Texas Penal Code." Sarah started crying harder. "Mom, please, we were drowning. The loans, the credit cards, Tom's trips weren't conferences. It was gambling. We thought if we could just get a fresh start." By declaring me incompetent? By locking me in a place I never wanted to go? By making me doubt my own mind until I believed I was losing it? Tom slammed a fist on the table, softly but enough to make the water glasses jump. "You don't understand pressure, Evelyn. You and Jack sat on that house like it was a museum. We needed help. Family helps family. Family doesn't steal from family. Family doesn't poison their mother's coffee. Sarah reached for me again. Mom, I'm sorry. I love you. We can fix this. Just don't do anything rash. I looked at Amelia. She nodded once. The monitor went dark. Amelia spoke into the intercom. Deputy, you can come in now. The door opened. The deputy, tall, broad-shouldered, badge gleaming, stepped inside with a clipboard. Sarah Reynolds, Thomas Reynolds, you're both under arrest for a suspicion of elder abuse, financial exploitation, and administration of a controlled substance without consent. Sarah's mouth opened in a silent O. Tom stood so fast his chair tipped backward. This is insane. We want a lawyer. You'll get one, the deputy said, already pulling cuffs from his belt. You have the right to remain silent. As they were read their rights, Sarah kept looking at me, pleading, then angry, then broken. Mom, please tell them this is a mistake. I stood slowly. My legs felt steady for the first time in months. It's not a mistake, Sarah. It's the truth, and I'm done pretending otherwise. They were led out, Sarah in tears, Tom stone-faced and silent. The notary witnessed my signature on the final trust documents. Amelia walked me to the elevator. You did good, Evelyn. It's over. Not quite, I answered, but it started. Mrs. Laundrie was waiting in the lobby. She hugged me without a word, then drove me home. The house looked the same, yellow siding, green shutters, porch swing swaying in the breeze, but it felt different, lighter, mine again. That night, I sat on the swing with a glass of iced tea, no bourbon, just the plain, sweet kind Jack liked. The fireflies were out early, blinking like tiny lanterns across the lawn. I thought about calling the church, about starting that tomato harvest tomorrow, about maybe planting roses where the vegetable bed used to be. I thought about Sarah, my little girl with pigtails, the one who used to beg for piggyback rides and bedtime stories. Somewhere along the way, she'd become someone else. Greed does that. Debt does that. Choices do that. I didn't cry. Not anymore. I just sat there, listening to the crickets, feeling the warm Texas night wrap around me like an old quilt. Tomorrow, I'd call Amelia about next steps, the restraining order, the civil suit for restitution, the criminal proceedings. But tonight, I was free.
Chapter 5. New Horizons. The days after the arrests blurred into a strange kind of quiet. The house on Maple Lane felt bigger without Sarah and Tom's voices echoing through it, but it also felt cleaner, like someone had finally opened all the windows after years of stuffy air. The first thing I did was call Pastor Mike at First Baptist. He came over that same afternoon with his wife, Ellen, carrying a peach cobbler still warm from the oven. We sat on the porch swing, the same one Jack and I used to rock on every evening, and I told them everything, not the ugly details, just enough so they understood why the trust documents named the church and the Humane Society as beneficiaries. Evelyn, Pastor Mike said, setting his iced tea down, you've been through a fire, but fire refines. You're not broken. You're being made new. I believed him, mostly. The criminal case moved fast. Texas doesn't mess around with elder abuse when the evidence is video, audio, and paper trails. Sarah and Tom were charged with financial exploitation of an elderly person, unlawful administration of a substance, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Bail was set high enough they couldn't post it right away. Amelia handled the civil side, a lawsuit for restitution on the unauthorized transfers, plus emotional distress. In the end, the judge ordered them to repay every cent they'd siphoned, about $18,000 total, plus court costs. Sarah lost her real estate license pending investigation. Tom's company let him go quietly after the news hit the local papers. I didn't go to the hearings. Amelia said I didn't have to, and I took her at her word. Some closures don't need you in the room to happen. Selling the house was harder than I expected.
The realtor, a kind woman named Carla who went to our church, staged it beautifully. Fresh flowers, soft lighting, the smell of vanilla candles masking years of bacon grease and grief. It went on the market in late summer and sold in 3 days for $785,000. Cash buyer, no contingencies. When the check cleared, I paid off the last of the fraudulent charges that had lingered on my credit report, then wired the bulk straight into the trust accounts, half to the church for a new youth center Jack always said we needed, half to the Humane Society for a canine training program in his name. The rest I kept for me, enough to start over without worry. I didn't stay in Willow Creek. Too many memories, too many sympathetic glances at the grocery store. Mrs. Landry cried when I told her I was leaving, but she understood. "Go find your next chapter, Evie," she said, pressing a jar of her famous fig preserves into my hands, "and send pictures of wherever you land." I chose Austin, not the flashy downtown part, the quiet south side near Zilker Park where the live oaks drape over streets like green curtains and you can still hear cicadas at dusk. I bought a small 2-bedroom condo on the 3rd floor of a low-rise complex called Oak Hollow. No yard to tend, but a balcony big enough for pots of geraniums and a bistro table where I could sip coffee and watch the sunrise over the hills. The complex had a community garden plot I signed up for immediately. Raised beds, drip irrigation, the works. My first planting was tomatoes, of course, Cherokee purples, just like Jack and I grew every summer. The first few weeks were lonely in a bone-deep way. I'd wake at dawn, reach for Jack, and remember he wasn't there. I'd walk the halls of the condo wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. Nights were the worst, too empty. But I kept moving. I joined a senior walking group that met at Zilker every Tuesday. We called ourselves the Hill Country Hikers, though most of us just strolled the trails and talked. There was Rosa, a retired nurse from San Antonio, Bill, a widower who'd flown helicopters in Vietnam, and Maria, who baked the best tres leches cake I'd ever tasted. They didn't pry. They just walked beside me. I started a little garden club in the complex courtyard. Nothing fancy. Once a month, we'd meet with coffee and cuttings, swap seeds, talk about soil pH and companion planting. Word spread. Soon we had 15 regulars, ages 60 to 92. We planted roses along the fence line, red knockouts, pale yellow teas, a climber Jack would have loved. Every time a bloom opened, I thought of him smiling. Sarah tried to reach out once. A letter arrived 6 months after the arrests, postmarked from a rehab facility in Houston. Her handwriting was shaky. "Mom, I don't expect forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. The gambling, the debt, the lies, I let it swallow me. Tom and I are divorced now. He's in Nevada chasing another scheme. I'm trying to get clean. Trying to understand how I became someone who'd hurt her own mother. Therapy says I have to own it. So here it is. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I loved you, but I loved money more in the end. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here. If not, I understand. Sarah." I read it twice, folded it, and put it in the bottom drawer of my nightstand. I didn't write back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Forgiveness isn't a debt you owe. It's a gift you choose to give. Right now, I wasn't ready, and that was okay. One evening in early spring, about a year after everything, I sat on my balcony with a glass of iced tea, no sugar, the way Jack drank it toward the end. The city lights were coming on below, the Capitol dome glowing pink in the distance. Rosa knocked on my door with a plate of empanadas. "Thought you might be hungry," she said. We sat together, eating and watching the sky turn from blue to gold to deep purple. She told me about her daughter in California, how they'd had their own rough patch, but patched it up. Family's messy, but sometimes you gotta prune the dead branches so the rest can grow. I nodded. I'm learning that. Later, after she left, I pulled out my phone and opened the photos. There was one from last week, me in the community garden, dirt on my knees, holding up a perfect Cherokee purple tomato like it was a trophy. I was smiling, really smiling, the kind that reaches your eyes. I looked alive. I texted the picture to Mrs. Landry with a simple caption, "New Horizons." Her reply came quick, "Beautiful, Evie. Jack would be proud." I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair. The night air was soft, carrying the scent of jasmine from the courtyard below. Somewhere, a mockingbird started its evening song, running through every tune it knew. I thought about the woman I was a year ago, foggy, afraid, shrinking under the weight of other people's expectations. I thought about the woman I was now, 73, a little achy in the mornings, but clear-eyed and free. I'd traded a big house full of ghosts for a small balcony full of light. I'd traded toxic love for chosen family. I'd traded guilt for peace. And every morning when I woke up, opened the blinds, and saw those Texas hills rolling out like a promise, I remembered one simple truth. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money or a house. It's the courage to walk away from what's killing you and step into what's waiting to let you live. I finished my tea, set the glass down, and whispered to the stars, "Good night, Jack. See you in the morning." Then I went inside, closed the door, and slept like I hadn't slept in years. Deep, dreamless, and whole.